right, I've got 3 o'clock. It is Wednesday, October 22nd, 2021, and this is the October meeting of the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District Board. At this time, I will ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Barnes, Chaplin. Here. Delgado.
Here.
Fasella.
Here.
Hannon.
Here.
Nudo. Dial.
Here. Dick Barnes is walking in the room, so we can announce that he's here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. Our next item is approval of our agenda for today's meeting. After your review, a motion and second.
I move we approve the agenda as distributed.
I would second Margaret's motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve our agenda for today's meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Our next item is audience participation. Anyone in the audience like to comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of our minutes from our board meeting, our open session board meeting, September 29th, 2021. Motion and second, please.
I move we approve the minutes as distributed.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the board meeting minutes for the open session of September 29th, 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Secondarily, our board meeting minutes from September 29th, 2021 closed session, which have been distributed and reviewed by the members present. I'll ask for a motion and a second on those.
I move they be approved as distributed.
Yes, we need a second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the closed session board meeting minutes from September 29th, 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Communications, Carl.
I have not received any.
Any communications from the board since we last met? All right, we'll move into the managing director's report.
All right, thank you. This is for September statistics, and in September 2021 there were 850,842 rides, and that is almost 3 times the amount in the preceding September in 2020. So that is great. That's a 186% improvement over last year. Of course, that is primarily indicative of the fact that students are back, faculty and staff is back on campus, and you know, much of life is back to normal in the community. In addition to that, our year-to-date ridership is up 112%, almost 113% over last year. So good news all around there. But still a little ways to go before we get to the levels that we were in 2019. And as I've mentioned before, that may take a couple of years before we get to that point, just because of the changing environment and conditions post-pandemic, or close to post-pandemic. Moving on to revenues, the September 2021 operating revenues were 24.7% above September 2020, and year-to-date operating revenue was 18.2% above FY 2021. And of course, as a reminder, we weren't collecting fares last year, so these significant increases in revenue are primarily due to fare collection, but also we're receiving the full contract amount from the university this year, and last year we were operating under a reduced level. The operating expenses also were up 21.1% above September of last year, and the year-to-date operating expenses were 11.5% above 2020 FY 2021. And that is because we were operating under that reduced level of service. So when you compare the expenses from that year to this year, it's pretty dramatically different. Even though we are under somewhat of a reduced level of service this year because of the employee shortage, it's dramatically more service than what we were providing last year at this time. The year-to-date revenues and expenses as compared to the budget, the revenues are $178,000 below budget, and operating expenses were $1.2 million under budget. Moving on, I just want to thank all the board members that were able to attend the October 14th unveiling event for our hydrogen buses. And those that weren't able to make it, hopefully you can get on our website and view some of the videos of that. I do have a video that I want to show everybody this morning. It's just kind of a quick minute and a half or so highlight reel of the event. So I thought you might find that interesting because you probably you definitely would not have been able to see all the like one-on-one interviews that the videographer did and that kind of thing. And so it's just a little bit of a different view than what you were able to see in attendance. So if the tech team is ready to play that, we can go ahead and go. We're here today doing something that 30 years ago, science fiction writers were talking about. So that's exciting.
What we're seeing today is the future of transit in America. These fuel cell buses can drive up to 300 miles on a single refueling and be refueled in less than 10 minutes. And get this, the only thing that these new buses are going to emit is water vapor.
It is truly zero emissions. It's not a gimmick, it's not a game.
This is the first time we've commercially deployed this class and size of bus with that technology. Earth-shattering.
I think hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, electric vehicles like that are going to be key and to move a lot of people around all day long.
Champaign-Urbana is taking its commitment to zero emissions even further by using solar panels to power the on-site hydrogen production station that fuels the buses.
It's powered by solar panels that are on the closed landfill.
They have a green energy source going into green buses.
A project like this could not be done without the financial assistance from the federal and state partners.
Really helps nudge the industry along to have these lighthouse projects that hopefully will encourage other districts to adopt a similar program.
I think it's critical to fund more projects like this, and that's one of the reasons that the Biden-Harris administration has made it a priority to focus on climate change.
And certainly transportation is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, and so agencies have a responsibility, and I'm pleased to see that the MPD again is taking a leadership role in this.
We have to have the ability for individuals to get from point A to point B when they might not be able to afford it or when they can't drive.
It is incumbent upon us as transportation leader to push cleaner energies like the project we're talking about today.
We deserve clean air, we deserve clean water, and we deserve clean soil. And this project is going to lend to all of those efforts.
We have the potential to do something that will make a difference for future generations. Champaign-Urbana was on the ground floor of it. I'm proud to be here today.
This project in specific has a wide range of partnerships from CTE, MTD, New Flyer, Trillium, PDC, now hydrogen.
There really was a lot of work going into bringing the right partners together and really having, I think, a very successful project.
I feel like we just got the A team. I mean, really the A+ team. I mean, it couldn't have gone better.
The Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District has been innovative, and Carl and his team continue to lead the way.
I'm excited about the buses. I'm excited about the clean energy.
The MTD is driving us to the future.
Someday I want to drive this bus and all the other buses.
He's a true believer, so yeah.
Yeah, it said underneath, our number one fan, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. He's a great kid and had a lot of fun things to give on that day. So that was fun. So again, very exciting. The buses are in service. We have one more piece of electrical equipment that has to be installed in the production station in order for it to be 100% running. And that is scheduled to be installed next week. And so that last final piece is right around the corner, although the buses have been in service since this event. So everything's thumbs up right now. The final thing on my report, I just wanted to let you know that this week we are literally beginning to roll out the OSF Illinois, University of Illinois SHIELD testing on site at our administrative offices for our employees. The employees that are not vaccinated have to get tested twice a week, and so having it on site will be a dramatic improvement for the vast majority of those unvaccinated employees. So I think that will help them kind of just get through this period of time where they have to do this extra thing. So that's great. And with that, I will take any questions that you have through page 41.
Anything for Carl on information in the packet, Phil?
Carl, I found Mayor Marlin's comment interesting. So the city has been looking for proposals to do solar on the closed landfill. Our solar panels are not on the closed landfill.
Phil, you know, I'll leave it to you to find that one thing that isn't quite accurate.
Well, it kind of got me thinking, though. We've got enough solar panels for 12 buses, which, if this thing goes well, that's maybe a fifth or a sixth of our fleet.
You're spot on. Here's what happened. We're actually going. This is a draft version of this video that I showed you today, and that clip is going to be taken out because I think that the mayor just got a little confused because the city is actually in the process of a project where they are installing a much larger array than what we have on that closed landfill. And so I think she just, you know, there's a lot going on. She's busy and she just misspoke there, but we are going to take that out. In addition to that,
should we maybe be talking with them about the potential to do that someday?
In addition to that, we are talking to them about that. In fact, Jane and I just had a meeting with Scott Test with the city of Urbana last week about that. So, and quite frankly, we had been talking for several years. We had been talking to them. We missed out. Some wires got crossed again, but we missed out on this particular opportunity, and it had a specific angle to it about the power having to go to low income areas, and so we didn't quite qualify for that. So I don't know that we would have been able to be involved with this specific leg of it anyway, but we are talking to them about doing expansion there. So yeah, that's underway. So good catch, and I'm not surprised that you nabbed that.
Additional questions, Margaret?
This reminds me, how far has work started actually on the solar array and the sanitary district property?
Did you say, are we on target?
She asked if it had started.
Oh, started.
which,
Yeah, yes, it has. In fact, they have pounded all the poles that will be the support structure. Jane can correct me if this isn't quite right, but I think they're planning on having all of the panels installed on the roof of the building that we're using, that the sanitary district owns before the construction period ends for this winter. So really in the next 4 weeks or so, we should have those panels installed, and then you know, I think they're mostly going to be taking a break for the winter months, and then when they come back in the spring, they'll start the rest of the installation, the ground mounted panels, and then all the connectivity and everything. So yeah, it's well underway.
But we will not be producing any of our own power over the winter then.
No. Yeah, and never planned to. We're drawing from the grid, and so it's great that we have the ability to do both if there are any problems down the road. But we'll be 100% pulling from the grid until spring of 2022 when the array is turned on.
All right, any additional questions up through page 41? Seeing none, we will move on to our first action item, which is Resolution 21-5, determining the amount of money necessary to be raised by the tax levy. Carl.
Thank you. So we're back in our annual cycle, and like the last 5 or so years, we still have an unresolved lawsuit in the works for the whether or not hospital properties are exempt, and so we have this what appears to be a really inflated levy increase because if that lawsuit gets resolved during this revenue year, then we want to be able to capture that revenue. We want that equalized assessed valuation to be included, and if we don't accommodate it, then we can never include it ever again in the future. If that lawsuit is not resolved, then this large percentage is not what gets applied to anybody's taxes. It will only be the CPI that gets applied to taxes. Yes.
It doesn't actually get applied to anybody's individual's taxes anyway. It gets applied to the base, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Sorry. Yes, that is correct. It's applied to the amount that is collected, that the rate is applied to, but the percentage is not applied to it. That's correct.
As I recall, back when I first came on the board, we actually had received some taxes that we tucked away in a secret bank account or something. Do we still have that money?
You make it sound so clandestine. We were for many years. I mean, we generally have used the term that we held it in escrow, although technically, just for full transparency, we didn't have an actual escrow account opened up for this money. We just, on our books, we were keeping track of this amount of money that had been collected from the hospitals prior to the lawsuit, and we just on the books, we weren't ever going to spend that money. It was just held off to the side. Last year, there was a ruling in the lawsuit, and so we and all the other taxing bodies had to pay that money back to the hospitals. But the city, who is the lead on that lawsuit, is appealing that, and so we all had to pay that back to the hospitals. But the appeal is still in process, and so it could be, I mean, in this crazy world, it could be that the hospitals have to pay back to us some portion of that again in the future, or not. I mean, nobody knows. So yes, we did.
We get to keep the interest?
No, the interest was paid back.
Anything else you want to add to your presentation on this, Carl?
I don't think so. Hopefully you had an opportunity to read through the memo. Just a quick point, although this is in that memo, that on a typical tax bill, which we have one included in the packet, the MTD taxes are generally below 5% of the total property tax bill. And in this particular case, which is just an average a typical tax bill in Champaign, we're actually 3.7% of the overall tax bill. And then on page 44, it shows you the history since 1991 of that CPI, the percentage of increase. So you can kind of see what that history has been. Last year it was 1.4%.
Perhaps board members may have noticed in today's paper that the Public Health District is asking for 39.44%.
Thank you. I don't know if anything I said was heard. Staff believes that it's responsible for taxing bodies, all taxing bodies, to leverage the entire equalized assessed valuation of our boundaries, and that provides better services at a lower cost to every individual taxpayer in our service district. And so public health, the forest preserve, the park districts, I haven't seen their notices yet, so I'm not speaking from a place of knowledge, but I think you're going to see this for us is, I turned to my page, it's 18.14%. Public health is 39.44%. I think most people will, or most districts will be somewhere in that range.
And historically, since this has been an issue, most districts have been using this methodology to basically cover themselves in case something happens with the court case, correct?
That is correct. I do communicate with several of the other taxing districts, and this is pretty much the same methodology that we're all employing.
Okay. Additional questions on this resolution from the board? Phil?
I've, first of all, thoroughly enjoyed the stuff we're doing this year with hydrogen, the yards project, these solar panels. It's exciting, the stuff that we get to do. But, as you know, every year, I kind of give the same speech about taxes. And I don't know, many of you may not know this, but in my professional life, much of my practice involves buying delinquent real estate taxes. So over just the past month or two, I've received 3 tax deeds, maybe 4 deeds in lieu of foreclosure. So I am intimately involved in the court process and in physically evicting taxpayers who are unable to pay their taxes. So this becomes personal for me. There is a real cost in taxation to families, especially senior citizens, black citizens, when we charge taxes. The people who can least afford to stay in their homes, when we charge taxes, we are a part of the root of severe housing inaffordability in our district. And I'm the face of the person who puts these people out on the street every month. So this makes me feel very strongly that we have a moral obligation to mitigate the use of government force, or as some of my liberal friends would say, violence, to fund our district. And that's exactly what we're doing. The sheriff comes to the door, I have an order for possession, I put somebody's belongings on the street, and they move in with family or into a nursing home. But that's my job, several days a month. So when we vote to assess or levy, in this case levy, more money than we absolutely need, we are contributing to the problems of housing instability and unaffordability for our most vulnerable citizens. And we're putting businesses out of business in our district. I am super excited about things like expanding solar and building onto this facility, but I think we also understand that even compared to many other taxing districts in our area, our needs are probably more wants than needs. And I think that right now, working families, especially in our current inflationary environment, the thing they need most is a tax cut. And the way that levies work, if we were to levy the same amount that we levied the previous year, this year, if Carl's taxes, assessment came on to the books, Carl would pick up its share of taxes and everybody else's taxes would go down. We're levying that we need $10 million. That $10 million gets spread out across all of the assessments equally. So, somebody whose house is worth a little bit, well, they'd pay a little bit less of that if the assessed value on the other property in the district went up. So, I'll make my annual resolution, probably won't get a second, but I would say that I think we have an obligation to provide people with tax relief, or at least not a tax increase. And we ought to keep our levy the same as it was last year and find a way to do less with more. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Seeing and hearing none, that resolution dies for lack of a second. So we'll go back to our original resolution 2021-5. Any additional comment on that? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion and a second on resolution 2021-5. It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2021-5. That'll be a roll call, please.
Barnes,
Yes.
Chaplin,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Vasella,
No.
Hannon,
Yes.
Dial.
Yes, that motion carries. Our next item is the Village of Rantoul Eagle Express Transportation Service, which is a part of the C-Carts program. Carl.
Yes, and Evan Alvarez, our Special Services Manager, is going to step up and give a short presentation on this.
Hi there.
Welcome, Evan.
Thanks. So the Eagle Express is a service that we've been running at C-Carts for the last 5 years or so. In a few different forms. This is renewing that service agreement with Rantoul. We run Monday through Friday during peak hours, so about 5 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., and then from 2:30 or 3 to about 6, depending on the route. The route's really designed to get people to and from the factory district in Rantoul, and really facilitate those employment trips. This is another 1-year extension to that service, similar to last year, just to allow us to remain a little bit more flexible in the face of uncertain times. We have the same kind of addendum related to COVID service and reduced pricing if we ever weren't able to meet the full service obligations, though we put that provision in place last year and never actually needed it. We were able to keep the full service on the street. Because we did do a rate freeze last year, it is increasing by about 3% this year. But otherwise, the service is exactly the same.
All right. Any questions for Evan on this item?
So we run buses from Champaign to Rantoul, right? But want to come to go from Rantoul, and then vice versa. And we run buses within Rantoul as though it were a suburb of Champaign, right? Just wanted to know.
No, oh, sorry. That's correct, though. We have the 14 passenger cutaway vans.
Right.
And we have some that run between Champaign and Rantoul. This, though, the Eagle Express service that we agreed to with the village is only the routes that run within Rantoul. The van back and forth is a route that we just kind of put in place because structurally it was easier for passengers to understand if the full part of their trip was a route, instead of, okay, I know that I have to be at the stop at this time, but then when I get here, a bus will come, I'll have to call and make an appointment. It was just a way of making the whole system a little more cohesive, but the one back and forth isn't necessarily part of this agreement.
Thank you.
Additional questions on this item? Dick?
How has the ridership been through COVID, and has it improved?
That is an excellent question. The Eagle Express ridership has increased consistently since it started and was just maturing as a service. Last year especially, though, we saw a big spike, and the ridership of the Eagle Express has really been like the story of kind of how the pandemic has affected us in general, where early on, the factories were all considered essential services and were able to continue hiring when a lot of places had been closed. So they had these huge employment, like hiring pushes, and we saw some of the most productive months of the Eagle Express's history last August, September, moving almost 3,000 people a month. But as that situation has changed, and we no longer have kind of the staffing surplus that we might have a year ago. We have seen ridership go down over the last 6 months or so, just because these are mostly employment trips, and if you have fewer employees, of course, fewer trips are being generated. And then we did also reinstitute fares last August, the same time that MTD did. Which of course had an effect on ridership. So generally it has been increasing. It did not in September, but that's been it.
Anything else on this item from the board? Phil?
I would say this is one of our services that I run into people that use pretty often. It's really well designed. You've got the time set up really well. It's very point to point for people coming and going from Rantoul. And it's a lot of money to drive your car to and from Rantoul, especially if you're maybe working a marginal job at the slaughterhouse or the factory and you don't have money for a good mileage car. Environmentally, the cars we're taking off the road are going to be end-of-life crappy cars that do a lot of damage to the environment. And we're probably saving a ton of pavement maintenance on 45. So this is a great route.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll ask for a motion and a second to approve the CCART's intergovernmental agreement for the Village of Rantoul Eagle Express service.
I move we approve it.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this agreement between MTD and CCART's. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Our next item is the smoke and tobacco-free policy. Thank you, Evan. Looks like Amy is moving to the forefront for this.
Thanks, Bruce. I'm a lot smaller than Evan. Good afternoon. Last month, myself and the Illinois Terminal Director, Josh Dahm, gave you a presentation about why MTD wants to go smoke and tobacco free at all of our facilities. And so we entered into a public comment period, which we're running for 30 days. So that will close tomorrow. We have promoted it internally and externally. And so as of today, there are 22 public comments that we've received. In the board packet, you have some of them. You don't have all of them because we had to print the board packet. But what's currently on our website is what we have to date, and we'll get that finalized one more time once we close that public comment period tomorrow. But as of this afternoon, we've received the 22 public comments, 18 of which are positive and affirming. 4 of them I would categorize as negative, but 2 of those 4 are just questioning the feasibility of enforcement of the policy, not necessarily disagreeing with the policy itself. So that's an overview. The memo I provided for you is an outline of why we're really passionate about this and why we believe this is the right thing for the district to do. So if you approve the policy today, staff would spend the next 2 months educating our employees, educating the public, and then preparing for a full launch on January 1st.
Questions for the Chief of Staff on this policy change?
Just want to congratulate you on a long, difficult, and successful now job.
Thank you.
Did you mention that the public comment period closes tomorrow?
It does.
So we will be voting on it before we have given everybody a chance to comment.
That's correct. And in hindsight, we should have just done the public comment from board meeting to board meeting. But I feel that with a vast majority of the comments being affirming, very affirming, that I think that it is still a fair representation of public opinion.
Anything else on this item? Seeing none, we'll ask for a motion and a second to approve the smoking and tobacco-free policy.
I move that the policy be approved.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the smoke and tobacco-free policy for all MTD facilities. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Our next item is the Urbana School District 116 Transportation Agreement for 2021-2022 school year.
Thank you. So this begins on page,
Excuse me,
I'm not sure.
Carl,
what
this
page
is
that
modeled after Champagne's.
Sorry?
This is modeled after the Champagne agreement.
Modeled after.
It's modeled after the agreement we've had with them in the past.
Similar to,
It's similar, yes. It's not identical, even in its structure, it's not identical, but both the school service for Champaign and Urbana are very integrated with one another, and that's one of the ways that we are able to leverage our service for a lower cost for both district, because neither district has to bear 100% of the cost of some of the hours of service that we provide. They're able to share it. So that ends up playing out a little differently for each of the districts. But in effect, they're very similar. We're transporting all the middle school and high school students that are eligible for school bus service, and so this is something that we do on an annual basis, and we have been doing this with Urbana since 1987.
Anything else you want to say about this
I don't know,
policy?
answer
It's
any
basically standard policy that we've had in the past. There aren't any big material structural changes.
There are no changes, material or otherwise, except for the dollar value, which is based on enrollment for Urbana.
Okay. Additional questions from the board? Seeing none, we'll ask for a motion and a second to approve transportation agreement with District 116 for 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded to approve agreement with District 116 for transportation for the next school year. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Our next item is a bus procurement purchase order.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to say a few things about this and then I'll pass it to Josh. So earlier, at the beginning of this year, the board provided approval for us to enter into another 5-year bus procurement contract with New Flyer. So this action item is about exercising options to purchase off of that contract. And this would be our second and third purchase off of that contract. What we're calling the second one is 60-foot hybrid, 4 60-foot hybrid buses to replace the oldest buses in our fleet. They'll be 21 years old by the time this replacement would happen. And they are our last remaining standard diesel buses. So with this replacement, our fleet will be 100% low or no emission. And then what we're calling the third purchase is for 40-foot hybrids that are not replacing any existing buses, but instead are expansion to our fleet, bringing our fleet of 114 to 118 buses. And one more thing I want to say before I pass it to Josh to talk about that need for expansion is the funding. This request, both of these purchases will utilize 100% federal funding through the American Rescue Plan Act.
All right, thanks, Jane. And I think Ryan has my presentation he's going to bring up here. Maybe back up one slide. Or we can start there, doesn't matter. There we go. All right, so I'm going to talk to you about bus expansion. Rolling forward. I don't have a clicker, so if I say next slide, that's why. So agenda, basically, I just want to go through some of the reasonings why and some of the things we're running into. And so you'll see the few things I have there as the spare ratio, where we're at, where we could be, what we're projecting, preventative maintenance downtime, what's expected there, the road calls and code 8s and the time down that comes from that, and then also parts delays, which, as many of you probably have experienced with anything in the world currently, there are shortages everywhere and long delays. And then I'll also talk about the 2011 fleet that we have, and then I'll talk a little bit about training needs. You can go to the next slide. So in our current situation, we find it necessary to expand our fleet by 4 buses, which would go from 114 to 118, as Jane said. We've increased the number of buses needed for pullout by 3 due to the addition of the 24 link route. If we currently were operating at full service with all of our operators, I would pretty much guarantee that we would be at a very strong risk of not having enough buses to pull out each day. And again, as I go forward here, you'll see why. You can go ahead and move forward. So our primary goal, obviously, in the maintenance department is we want to have the ability to fulfill the fleet needs of operations, maintenance, keeping up with preventative maintenance, and the training department daily. And so if you look here, the spare ratio is the very top bar graph that you see there is 11.76%. So that's where we're at currently. And on the right side, that blue box, if you look just at the very bottom, that pretty much explains exactly what we're talking about. So spare ratio is defined as the total number of spare vehicles divided into the total vehicles required for our annual maximum service, basically what our peak is. And so if you look at the bar graph again, currently we are at 11.76%. If we were to increase by the 4 buses that we're proposing, it would put us at 15.68%. And the FTA benchmark is 20%. So still, even adding 4 keeps us quite a bit below. And then again, if you look down at the bottom, that's just the breakdown of where the numbers come from. Our peak requirement currently is 102. We're currently with 12 spares. You divide them, that's where the 11.76% comes in. And then below with the expansion, as you see, brings us to the 15.68%. And you can move on. Reasons for downtime. So if you look here, PM inspections, so that's basically our preventative maintenance inspections. So when we are looking at the buses, whether we're doing just an oil change, we're inspecting brakes, we're looking for leaks, we're finding things that the buses need to try and prevent downtime. That takes time itself. So currently we do on the low side about 3 a day. On the high side, probably 7 is pretty much the high side. So we average about 5 per day. So taking away from that 114 number, you take 5 out instantly just for the preventative maintenance. Then if you go down, road calls, code 8s, tows. So here on the low side, you're going to find generally 2 per day. On the high side, 3. So about an average of 2.5 buses there. Now, obviously, that can increase and decrease day by day, but generally speaking, that's the numbers. And to explain exactly, because I know some of this terminology may not make a lot of sense. So a road call is essentially if an operator has an issue with a bus and they call into control, hey, I have a check engine light on, what do I do? Control calls us in maintenance and says, there's a check engine light on, what do we do? Well, depending on what the issue is at hand, a road call, we actually will send a technician out on the street to try and make a quick repair, get the bus either operational or at least bring it back safely without having to tow it and bringing in more expense. A code 8 is essentially a driver calls in with an issue that's not safety related, not detrimental, not going to hurt the bus to drive it, but shouldn't continue its route. So in with a code 8, basically we would tell control, go ahead and have the driver bring it back. We'll bring you a different bus and swap it out. So that's kind of the difference there. And then obviously tows, a tow I think is pretty self-explanatory. Then if you look at safety and training, their needs currently on the low side, they need 4 buses a day just to train operators and staff. On the high side, 7. So it's about an average of 5.5 as it stands currently. So if you look at the bottom, it kind of totals up on the low side where we would be, on the high side what's needed, and then it shows an average of about 12.5 buses a day, give or take, that come completely out of the fleet that can't be utilized. All right, we can move on. Yes. Yeah, everything here is considering that that's yes. So this is just a quote from our inventory supervisor, Ken, who orders all of our parts. Part shortages are a daily occurrence. I hear it every single day. He told me that this morning. We are constantly running into parts we can't find. In fact, I was talking to Michelle earlier about different ways of obtaining parts, possibly even eBay. There's some parts that we've had to look for there just because we just can't get them. There's no ETA, and some of these parts will hold a bus down where it can't operate. If you move forward, so here's just kind of an explanation of parts, and these are real numbers that I pulled out of our parts dashboard. So currently on the far left, we have 28 buses with parts on order. Now, not every one of those parts is a bus down situation, but there are 28 different buses that have some sort of part on order. Then the next number is the staggering number of all of them really is 35, and that's the current number of days it takes to receive a part, which I can't speak historically where that number has been, but I'm very confident in saying that that's much higher than what we're accustomed to. The next category over is 16, and that's the number of parts on order that can only be sourced from New Flyer because it's an interior part or it's a structural part of the bus that can't be obtained anywhere else. And then 12 is the number of parts that we have on order that we can get from different sources. So they would be simple things such as brake pads, air filters. We'll get creative. We'll find things other places if we can. But as you can see, 16 of the parts can't be found or sourced anywhere else. We have tried to utilize old used parts that we have. We've tried making parts. We get creative, but there are certain situations where you're just stuck. I think you can move on. Training. So currently, safety and training is utilizing an average of about 4 buses a day. But projected, as the need for operators increases and we need to train them, the goal is to get up to at least 7 buses per day. So again, that's going to draw away from the amount of buses that we can use in revenue service daily. You can move on.
Got a question.
Yep.
You got 16 parts that you need from New Flyer. And we are about to spend $4 million something with them and have spent a lot of money with them in the past. In fact, they did the hydrogen buses. Can't we get better service from New Flyer than that?
I would say that there's many other transit districts in the exact same situation as us. I mean, New Flyer is kind of at the mercy of their employment issues and strategy. So, I mean, I've spoken with our rep Terry multiple times about part shortages and ways around it. What can we do? Unfortunately, I don't know that there is a strong solution for that right now. I really don't.
If I may, Bruce, I can assure you it's not that they're making a choice to serve another transit system over us. They don't like being in this position any more than we like being in this position, and they are suffering under the same global supply chain issues that everybody else is struggling with. They don't manufacture many of their own parts. They have subcontractors who manufacture them, and so it's a series of dominoes that refuse to fall. And so it's not that they're not giving us parts; it's that they don't have any parts to give us, and it is a real dilemma that is a global situation right now.
It's because they don't keep an inventory big enough.
Well, so that is absolutely correct. I mean, for 20 or 30 years prior to the pandemic, this just-in-time delivery of parts has been the way that all of industry has been going. And now that chicken has come home to roost because that worked really well for the most part with only minor hiccups over the last several decades. But when a pandemic hits, and we have employment shortages across the globe the way that we do, and that's all occurring at the same time, just in time doesn't work because it's a myth. It doesn't exist right now, and so everybody is stuck. Yeah, it's, all right, I'll let it go.
And I would also say to that, the thing you have to remember is New Flyer sells 2 things, buses and parts. So they want to sell us the parts as bad as we want to buy them. They have, but they can't sell us what they don't have. So Then moving on, so the 2011 fleet, currently we have 36 in total. And just kind of looking at the lifespan and where we're at, I mean, it brings a lot of concern to me. Obviously, I'm newer, but just looking at this, we've replaced 0 hybrid batteries so far. And if you just kind of scroll over to the right there, you'll see average cost of repairs. A battery is about $53,000. That was at least at our last, when we checked pricing last. And we've replaced 0 of them. The expected, as you see next, OEM states that the battery life begins to degrade severely at 8 years. Some districts will actually replace the batteries as like a maintenance item around the 8, 9, 10-year mark, which to me seems kind of crazy because we're currently at the 10-year mark and haven't had an issue yet. But with 36 of them all the same age, that's kind of a looming issue in the air. And then if you look down, we have replaced 5 engines in the 2011s with an average cost of about $27,000. I think you can move forward. The old hybrid batteries, yes, yeah, but there's really no. So in terms of replacements, there are some aftermarket ones you can try to use, which do have a little bit less in terms of cost, but I don't think it's a large cost savings. And then moving on, the timeline. So I just kind of projected this out just to show how fast time flies and how long it actually takes to get these builds put together. But today, presenting this obviously, and then if you move forward, pre-production would begin in 2022, Q1. The builds wouldn't actually begin until probably Q4 of 2022. And likely we wouldn't see them in revenue service until Q1 of 2023. If you look at the current builds we have now, I mean, we're running into 5 months and we're still not complete. We're close, but not complete.
Sorry to go back just a little bit, but in terms of just in time and all that sort of thing, are there certain parts, I'm sure there are certain parts that we keep on hand in inventory, but that I'm sure that doesn't include the higher end things. Is that fair?
Yeah, we have about, give or take, about $1.4 million in parts inventory as it stands right now. And so the challenge does become with the spread of buses we have from 2001 up to 2021, trying to keep parts for that many different generations of buses. That can be tough. So we try not to keep like brake pads and some of the like brake drums, some of the simple things that we can just source locally. We try not to keep much of that in stock because we can just go obtain it and not keep it in inventory. But you get into some of the larger things like the engines, not generally something you're going to want to keep in stock. It just doesn't really make sense. One other thing that I didn't include in the slide that's become an issue is we've had to do a couple of DPIM replacements, which is a part on the bus that's part of the hybrid system that helps drive the vehicle. And this particular part has to be programmed, and there's only one individual in our area that can actually do this programming. And we're currently about 3 weeks out to get that person here. So anytime we have those issues arise too, it's just more downtime. The personnel shortages they're everywhere. I mean, everything that we touch or we deal with in our maintenance department, there's a shortage. I think you can go on. And that's it, unless there's questions.
Phil's got a question, and could we take that back to the spreadsheet where you were showing the breakout of the buses based on things happening on the street and different situations where how you're arriving at your number? If we put that back up, I'd like to see that again.
Did you find a math error there?
There you go. Go ahead, Phil.
If our hydrogen project goes well, when will we potentially stop ordering diesel electric buses?
I think it'll be quite a while before we completely stop purchasing hybrids, because that would be a series of dramatic and significant next phases, so enlargements of our hydrogen production station. So as you mentioned earlier, the version that we have right now will fuel 12 to 15 buses depending on the mix of sizes that we get. And so once we get to that point, we're going to have to expand the production station. And so, you know, each time we do that, there's a cost associated with that. So I think it will be, we'll still be buying diesel electric hybrids for, I don't even want to say a number, but you know, years and years still ahead, we'll be doing a mix.
Additional questions for Carl or staff on this item? So on rollout, I think we have, do we have a slide that says how many we're using on rollout, like right now?
Like, 102 is the peak right now on Wednesday.
And we have, there you go.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for. Okay. So you got 12 spares, but 5 of those spares are likely having preventive maintenance done on them every day. So there you're at 7. And then we got some people using some buses for training. So we got those buses that are out. And then we have buses that are maybe missing parts that you're not going to use. So you're probably barely making your rollout a lot of the time.
Sorry.
Or you're having to move stuff around or roll a bus out early in the morning and then bring it back in and start doing preventive maintenance on it after kind of the rush.
That's
Is that accurate?
you're exactly right. So our person that kind of does our pull out in the morning assigning buses, there's many times where he'll have to take a bus that's slated for inspection, put it on the street, and then we have to scramble and basically do the inspection that evening or overnight or something like that. So we always get them done, but but yes, you're exactly right. So it is a scramble to make it
It's going
happen.
to add a lot of flexibility to have some additional coaches, basically. Is that
That
accurate?
is 100% accurate.
All right.
Yep.
Additional questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the bus procurement purchase order as noted in your packet.
I move we accept this.
Excuse me, we're buying 8 buses?
Yeah, it would be 4 replacements that are already scheduled and then 4 expansion. So it would be a total of 8, yes.
I will second Brad's motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the purchase agreement or procurement purchase order with New Flyer for 8 coaches. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is the Mobile Eco Squared
Chairman,
pilot project.
if I may impart, if you're spending expenditure of money, there needs to be a roll call vote.
Well, let's do that. Let's have a roll call.
Barnes,
Yes.
Chaplin,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Vasella,
Yes.
Hannon, Dial.
Yes. Thank you, Nancy. That motion carries. All right. Our next item is the Mobile Eco Squared Vehicle Pilot Project. Proceed.
Okay, I'm here to talk about a pilot project. Jay Rank, Operations Director. I'll take my mask off since it's apparently can't hear me. I'm here to talk about a pilot project that we're proposing. It's a 16-bus pilot that we want to give a try. It's an extension of the Init software, which is, the bus tracking, real-time data, the statistics, the technology that we use for our operations. And this product is basically 2 products in one. It's called Eco Squared, and the idea is economy and ecology. So it's supposed to help save money, and it's supposed to help save the environment. And it's done through vehicle health monitoring and operator driving behavior monitoring. So it gives us the ability to monitor and communicate vehicle issues and driver behavioral issues in real time. So the idea is that by monitoring that, we can improve our service reliability and save money. So there's two components, and Josh is still up here to talk or to answer any questions about the maintenance aspects. Basically, the vehicles are out there and they're driving all day, and there's a system monitoring the buses, just like a car, right? The engine temperature, oil pressure, air pressure, ABS, transmission, climate control, all of that is being monitored. And certain issues warrant a warning light on the bus. And basically, this product will kind of tap into that, and it can display any of that information on the MDT, or we call it the co-pilot, and it can alert the driver, the operator. So our current process is for the operators to call in if there's a light on the dash and ask control, kind of like they were talking about a minute ago. What should I do? Is it, you know, a check engine light? Is it a stop it? You know, and then control. In some cases, needs to call maintenance and say, hey, what's the advice here? What do we need to do? What this does is can save a step. We'd still expect them to call maintenance and communicate, but maintenance would have the ability to know, based on a dashboard, or if it's severe enough, they'd get email alerts about what the issue is, and they would be able to kind of tap into the system and know what's going on, so they can proactively respond or give advice on what they should do. So, you know, should the operator ignore it? Should we bring it back to the garage at their earliest convenience? Or should it be stopped right now and turned off? Or should we, you know, stop it and leave it running so that maintenance can see what's going on? So that's the idea with that. It sends the information back via cellular real time, and like I said, there's a dashboard. It can create email alerts, so you know a maintenance foreman or technician or even the director can get an alert and intervene quicker. And yeah, be able to see the current readings off of the bus so that they can make a decision on what to do. And if they need to go out and do a roll call, they can bring the appropriate equipment, parts, or personnel, or if they need to tow it, they would know in advance to bring the tow truck. So this could save time and energy in how quickly we can restore service if they can run out there with a spare part and pop it in real quick and put the bus back, opposed to bringing it back and having an operator you know, codate the bus essentially. Otherwise, we would have a solid history of each vehicle, better reporting mechanism that may help with preventive maintenance, and rely less on FleetNet, which is, you know, important software that we use for work orders and more. But right now they're having to rely on manual entries for issues, and this would supplement that. So from a maintenance side, I think those are the pros. You have anything to add?
Yeah, just to kind of use an analogy, if you think about like when the fire department gets a call and they have to respond, they kind of know what they're going to. They know if they're going to a working fire, they know if they're going to a car accident, if they're going to a medical, so they can take the proper equipment with them to go. Well, okay, in this example, like today, for instance, I took a phone call from control and they had a bus with a stop engine light on. Okay, great. That doesn't tell me a whole lot other than shut it off and don't move it. So we'll send a truck out, we'll evaluate the situation, and then at that point, that maintenance truck usually would have to come back, get a part, get something, get a tow truck, then go back. You're making 2 trips. Whereas if we had that live data instantly, we would know exactly what to bring. We could assess the situation. We get the bus off the street a whole lot faster, saving a lot of time. And as Jay kind of showed me some of the information from the software and what it can do. It is supposed to reduce some of your maintenance and repair expenses. It's claimed that it reduces tire costs by 5%, maintenance costs by 5%, and fuel by 10%. Just based on the way that it watches driver behavior, and it feeds back to us if someone's taking turns too fast, accelerating too hard, braking too hard, then Jay can coach a driver, or safety and training can coach a driver on how to better operate the vehicle, thus reducing the maintenance costs. But I think overall, it definitely helps the maintenance department a lot. Quicker responses, we're more prepared, and it helps us to make better decisions when a bus is down out on the street. So,
Question. So a bus stops due to some part that's broken. What do you do about the rest of that route that bus was on?
So, yeah, if we have extra vehicles out there, we call them show-up operators, show buses. We can plug them in and cover the route as quickly as we can. So, you know, under normal circumstances, when we don't have a driver shortage, you know, we usually have buses staged around town, you know, one outside Illinois Terminal, one off the campus, one near Lincoln Square, one up around Barn, and can jump in pretty quickly to cover the route.
But with this system, you may be able to fix it and get it back on the route before you need to get a bus out there to finish the route, right?
I would say that it would still take them time to respond, so we still need to cover the route, because every minute counts, right? But it could mean that we save an hour of time between the maintenance responding, helping the bus, and getting the bus back going, and then we can use that show-up operator on something else, or at the moment, you know, we're short on operators, short on show-up operators as well, so you know, the faster that we can get moving, the better.
Phil?
This is really cool. It reminds me a lot of some technology that the mining division at Caterpillar was working on like 10 years ago, where you could have a sensor in a torque converter 4,000 feet underground in Inner Mongolia, and somebody in Decatur could look at a screen with the entire population of these torque converters across the entire globe and say, this one has too much iron, we need to shut this machine down, and they could relay that to an operator 4,000 feet underground on the other side of the earth. But you've got a $5-10 million machine that now you can send the part to Mongolia overnight, install before you ever have any downtime. So all I would encourage you to do on this is be creative, where if you can, it's great, we're going to save tires, but if we can be monitoring transmission temperatures across our entire population of 2011 hybrid buses and say, hey, this one's kind of out of the average, we should check that out, maybe order a spare part to have around. You know, you can really do powerful stuff with this, especially as we spec new buses and say, hey, throw more sensors in here that interact with this.
Yeah, and that's something that they alluded to in the promotional material. We haven't really talked too much about it because we haven't experienced it. That's a potential option that we would certainly pursue, but we didn't want to like claim that this is going to, you know, save all of these ways without having any evidence. So yeah, it's a pilot project. It's going to change a lot of the ways we operate. And Brad, did you have a question too, or?
I am going to have a question whenever you guys are done. So.
Okay, because I'm going to move on to the operator behavior part too.
So I will ask, or I'll make just a quick statement and then a question. But what Bruce's question is a good example of why we need to have some additional coaches, because when one coach goes down, you got to send another one out to finish that route. So we have to have reserve coaches ready to go all the time. So when we're under stress or when we've got everything rolled out, we still need to have some buses in reserve. So another good support for the previous item we talked about. What are the target coaches going to be for this program? Is this going to be a diverse group of units, or is it going to be specifically on a certain group of coaches, or do you know that yet?
We don't know the specific coaches, but it will be more of the more recent purchases, but probably over the last several years. So,
but would it be on 40s and 60s or not, do you think?
It will be on both 40s and 60s, probably from the 2019, 2018, 2020 series of vehicles. We won't install them on any of the 2011s because that's the next round of buses that we'll be
And
replacing.
I'm sure you can get much more information from the newer units than you can from the older units as far as the technology that's on those
That's
coaches already.
that's right.
All right. All right, go ahead, Jay, thanks.
Yeah, and additionally, it requires cellular, and not all of our fleet has cellular yet. But by the time this pilot's over, or we feel good about it, I think we will have the fleet complete there. So yeah, on the operation side, so there's a lot of benefits with behavior monitoring. There's sensors in, the pedals. There is a, I don't know what you would call it exactly, but it measured force, and it can determine how harsh you accelerate or brake or take turns, and by pairing all this information with the block, the login information, the GPS, then it can paint a pretty clear picture about how an operator is behaving, or how a route is designed, or a specific trip. If it's too quick, we can figure out, I think, a lot of information, or I hope to be able to figure out a lot of information about what's going on, and we can improve a lot of aspects of our service. But we can have an icon put on the MDT or our co-pilot in cases where someone is braking harshly or accelerating fast or taking turns quickly, or even idling, and it can hopefully train our operators to drive a little bit more carefully or safely, so that they are naturally behaving as we would hope, and their habits would improve. But if not, we would have the opportunity to meet with them and point that out, and coach and mentor and discipline if necessary. So there'd be a dashboard component to this as well, and we can see what the issues are with our service. If we need to target individual operators, or if we need to send out larger messages about more common problems, and we can then adjust our training or retraining programs based on this information. Likewise, I think it'll give us the opportunity to take a look at our Outstanding Operator Award, or some of our, or even develop some positive recognition program based on how people are driving. Yeah, with Josh stole a little bit of my thunder earlier, but yeah, less wear and tear, better fuel economy, reduced safety issues, improved passenger comfort, I think are all benefits that we would see with this. And yeah, I mean, this is a little extreme, but if we could avoid an accident or save an engine, I mean, this will almost pay for itself. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I will say we did demo this product, I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago. We weren't thrilled with it, to be honest, and didn't pursue it. They've come a long way with the scope and how they measure what the capabilities are. And in the meantime, a couple agencies, York Transit out of Toronto, and CDTA in Albany, New York, have implemented it. We interviewed them and got a good feeling about that. They're pretty happy with it. After an initial kind of break-in period, or where you get the parameters and everything right, they're happy with how it's working out. So yeah, we're proposing a 16 bus pilot program, and it could be extended to any vehicle after that with cellular. So the initial pilot would be $79,932, and then $2,496 for any vehicle beyond that. Yeah, we're looking to move forward with this project and pretty excited about, what we think we can do with it and also the opportunities for getting creative with what, what we haven't even thought about yet.
Good job, Jay.
Thank you.
Dick?
Yeah, is this for the dollar amounts per bus? Is this per year, or is it, I mean, is it a one shot, you buy it and we have it, or is it a
We
subscription?
buy it, we have it, it's a license per bus. I think each one adds a little bit to our ongoing maintenance each year. But no, it's not a $2,500 per bus per year deal.
Then they troubleshoot the code for you?
Well, they have a data dictionary, and it works with our specific vehicles. New Flyer shared their data, the codes and everything in it, so they know, and either New Flyer or Init could interpret them, or these guys may know them as well. So yeah, I don't know in terms of how it would work. If we didn't understand what the code was, we'd have to research it. But it seems that both New Flyer and Init are working well together, and there's no issue with proprietary data or anything.
What's the current method of assessing operator, like driving behavior?
I mean, it is based on what supervisors see, based on schedule adherence, based on public feedback, things like that. So
we also do check rides. We have people that go out and kind of spot check and do trips with operators and write up assessments. So it's very analog. Instead of this digital version, but we do what we can.
So if fully implemented, you'll be able to really get a lot of really accurate, like, operator data.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely the hope.
Additional questions from the board on this item? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion and second to approve the pilot project for the Mobile Eco Squared. It's been moved and seconded to approve this item. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Sorry. Barnes? Chaplin?
Yes.
Delgado?
Yes.
Vasella?
Yes.
Hannan?
Yes.
Dial.
Yes, that motion carries. That was our last action item for our meeting today. Thank you for your presentation, Jay and Josh. Appreciate it. Our next meeting will begin with the public hearing on the tax levy, and our regular Board of Trustees meeting will follow. That will be Wednesday, December 8th. Make sure you have that on your calendars. It's not going to be at the end of the month of November, but it'll be at the beginning of the month of December combined meeting. December 8th, 2021 at 3 o'clock right here in the Illinois Terminal. This time I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move.
And a second. And it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.